Everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Artesprix, and in today's video we're going to be creating with an Artesprix Sublimation wine tumbler. I have already taken it out of the package. Here's the little logo. You will want to remove this. I'll remove it before I go to, well, let's just go ahead and remove it right now. Then we'll go through the supply list. I like to do that. We're going to heat this up into a oven dedicated for sublimation. So it is going to be extremely hot. So I like to remove those labels before I do that or anything. Open this up. You want to remove the lid as well and not have anything inside of it if there's anything that came with it. We're going to be using the sublimation tumbler wraps for sublimation. You're going to also need a heat gun with that sublimation wrap. You're going to need Artesprix heat tape. This is specialized heat tape to withstand the high heat for the sublimation. I'm also going to be using the Artesprix protective paper to protect the metal surface on my oven that I have over here heating up. So if you hear it ticking, that is my oven heating up with the timer over there. Today's video, I'm going to be sharing just a fun technique. We'll see how this turns out. I'm going to be using these Artesprix Sublimation Inks. They come in two different sizes. So you have a 0.5 fluid ounce and a 2 fluid ounce. Depending on how much ink you are actually using, these are re-inkers. It is the sublimation ink that is in the markers, the paints. The paint is a little bit thicker, but it is all the same thing. This is more of a liquid, so we're going to be working with that. With Artesprix sublimation products, you need copy paper. You can use other types of paper too, but you do not need to have any specialized sublimation paper. So today I'm going to be using an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, simply because I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do a full wrap or try to do a full wrap, or if I'm going to just do one side and see how it turns out. So you will notice that this sublimation tumbler does have a curve to it, so you want to keep that in mind. You can definitely try to do a full wrap, but as you come down the side, you're going to see that sometimes paper does not lay completely flat onto a surface like this. So you can play around with that. I'm going to be working and putting my focus on the top, the straight part of this tumbler, and that's where we're going to do our design with. So then what I'm also going to be doing is a technique. I'm going to use some plastic wrap. This is going to help to keep that ink kind of fluid for a little bit longer versus, drying out and soaking into the paper. So we're going to play around with this idea. Let's go ahead and get started. Make sure to grab some paper towels. This might get a little bit messy, especially in my studio. So let's go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to clear up my space so we can get started with designing. Oh, and I also do have some silicone mats on my workspace. You'll see that's why I have two different colors here. For the larger paper, I have that to protect my work surface. If you do get any of the ink onto your surface, just make sure to clean it up with some water. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this out of the way here so it doesn't affect my design. I'm going to roll out some of this shrink plastic. And it can be any type, any brand. You'll notice that it sticks together. That's actually a very fun way or technique that you can do with inks and things. It gives it a texture to it if it does stick together. So I'm just going to try to straighten this out. I need a section that is going to be for this width on this tumbler. So that's what I'm going for. Cling wrap or shrink protective wrap, and I always have a little bit of an argument trying to get it to tear off. Anybody else in the comments, let me know if you are always fighting with plastic wrap. I called it shrink wrap at the beginning, but that's what we're actually going to use to shrink wrap around the that's what this is, the tumbler wraps. That's shrink wrap. I love watching shrink wrap, so we'll get to that part here in a little bit. What I have also done, I will link a video in the description below this video for using the Artesprix heat resist mask. I've gone ahead and cut this letter out. I'm going to use it as a monogram onto this wine tumbler. So I've just cut a letter E. Find a font that you like. If you have a cutting machine, you can also use punches as well. But we're going to first start with just adding some colors in here. So what I'm going to start with first, and you want to make sure, keep in mind your color mixing. If you get too many colors and too many things next to each other, you can definitely make mud. Been a while since I've used some of these, so I want to shake them up. And then Get the ink flowing here. And I'm just going to add some ink. I'm going to grab a water bottle. So I just have a mini spritzer here. It's just filled with water. You could also use alcohol as well. But I'm just going to kind of spritz this around, see how it does, and grab another little tool. Now this is where it could get a little bit messy, but if you have a little bulb from working with alcohol inks, you can kind of play with that and have it move that ink around. You could also use a paintbrush. Might do that technique here just a little bit. All I'm going for is just trying to move some ink around, play with the ink, add some different colors in here. You can really create with all kinds of different, you know, if you try to create chaos, it turns out a little bit better because you're already working with chaos. If you're trying to go for something specific, the best part is you're using copy paper. So you can make multiples of the design and come back and play with it and see what you like. Sometimes you come back and you play with the original design that you have, and it may be your favorite compared to the other ones that you create. I save all of my sublimation prints, no matter what, because I can always go back and use them for different projects. So we'll see how this turns out. And we can do some other techniques here. Smooshing. So I've added yellow and orange to this. And just kind of move this around. If you get too much in one area, you might grab a paintbrush. And then you'll want to use some water if you want, but the paintbrush kind of works this out. I'm just playing around with some shrink plastic, seeing how it is going to turn out for creating with designs. You can play with all kinds of different things. Mix some colors in here. And then let's add another color in. Leave that there. Let's see, that was orange. I'm going to add in red. And then that's a bit thick. Let's see how it works out with my, kind of going here for a starburst. Give that some red. And then what I can do is I can come in on the other side over here, do some other colors. That's why I rolled out quite a bit. So we can kind of just play with it, see what is going to happen. Red, here's purple. I have blue, purple, and green. Let's add in, this one's blue. Just add in some drops here. And just play, 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 play. Let yourself go. There's really, with Artesprix products, there's really not a whole lot of rules that you have to follow. There's generalized sublimation rules, but even then you can kind of break those. Shh, don't let them know that I said that. You can kind of break them and just step outside the box, see what's going to happen. Purple. Add some purple in here. Do the same thing. Oh, smooshing. See, no, wrong way. Smoosh. Come back in here. The only thing I do caution you on is if you get too much water or too much, it's going to soak through that paper. You just want to make sure that it dries on the paper. But this kind of gives it this unique look because the ink will, with the paintbrush, it's going to, like here, I do a streak, but then it kind of comes back together on itself. So it has a really neat look to it. I actually kind of like that. I think I'm going to stop. I think I'm just going to stop there. And I'm going to grab a lint roller. Because I have been handling this wine tumbler, I want to use a lint roller, and I'm just going to roll this off. Sublimation is a process of this ink turning into a gas, and the gas transfers from our copy paper to the sublimation blank, which is a polyester coated blank. And I see some debris there, so I was just lint rolling that off. Anything that is between my paper and the tumbler, microscopic fibers, things you cannot even see, that ink will bind to it. So if you have any dirt or debris, dust is a big one. If you've ever sublimated onto a white t-shirt, you may have seen little blue dots show up. That is an indicator of dust or debris. So you want to try to work with that. Use the lint roller to help pick that up. This is my sheet of copy paper, plain old ordinary 11 by 17 copy paper. I am just going to use one of my favorite techniques, just smooshing, because you can't really go wrong. Now that is quite a bit of ink, so I am going to have to let this print dry. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up the ink and we'll see how much is left over. And that gives it a really fun, kind of tie-dyed. You can see I'm still very linear. I'm still a very linear person. I'm going to let this dry completely, not under heat, or you could activate that ink. So I'm going to set this aside. I can see some of that pooling there, but I just want to make sure that it's completely dry before I go to use it on my tumbler. But what I can do here, and this may be a lighter print, I can either come in and add some more into this with my paintbrush, or I can simply just pick up some of this excess ink with another sheet of copy paper. And I'll just do this until my ink is gone. That's a bit lighter. Here you can see there's even just a blob. This blob doesn't even want to go away. And then you can flip it around and do it a little bit different. So there was not much ink left on that, but that would still be a really cool background for a design. And then with your plastic wrap, just roll that up. I'm actually going to, I don't have a cup of water right here, so I'm going to roll my paintbrush up in it so that I can go wash this out as soon as I'm done with the video. So here is this print, and my other one is still drying. I did say don't add it to the heat, but I do have my little heat gun here. What I can do, this is a very powerful heat gun by Ranger. What you can do to speed up the process, you don't want to get it too hot or hold this too close, but you can add a little bit of heat just to help some of that area dry. I prefer to let it, air dry. That's one thing about recorded videos, is it's nice that you can allow that to air dry at times. Another option, if you get too much ink, is also, you can take a paper towel. You can even use a paper towel, any excess ink on the paper towel, and that could be applied to a sublimation blank as well. Lots of ideas: tissue paper, coffee filters, mixed media paper, watercolor paper. So I am getting some of that ink pulled up, and I have that. So I am going to let this completely dry before I go to use it. And I did get a little bit heavy in there, but I like this pattern. We'll see with sublimation inks, keep in mind the colors that you see currently are going to be lighter until you have actually pressed that or heated it up to the temperature that the blank, which this one is 350 degrees in a dedicated oven for sublimation, for 5 minutes. We are going to let this dry, and then through movie magic, I'm going to come back and I'll show you the next steps. Now, once it's completely dry, you can begin to put your design together. First thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with this heat transfer resist mask, and I'm going to lay this here. One thing I did forget at the beginning of the video is you're going to want some heat safe gloves. This is for pulling it out of the oven, but you can also use them on your workspace to hold your product in place while you're working on it, just so it doesn't roll. And this heat resist mask can go either on the blank, or if you reverse the image, you could put it onto your paper. We're going to try it directly on the blank for mine today. And I'm just going to, you could use transfer tape if you needed to for adhesive vinyl. If you had a design that was pieces, but since mine is simply just a letter, I am going to just place that like a sticker on top. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that this is very well secured. So what's going to happen is, what should happen is this heat transfer resist mask, anything that's underneath it, as long as I have a good seal, is going to remain white. So any part of that design, which I do have a little bit of white in my design, so we'll see how this turns out. Every time is an interesting project. And then I just want to make sure that's secure. And since I did that, I am going to lint roll that again, just to get any debris off. Or any of the debris from my fingers. And then I have my monogram. I'm going to set these aside, and then I can carefully just kind of grab this and play with the placement of it. So I'm going to set this down, and I can give myself some idea of where I want to place this design. Since I want that white, I can try to choose an area of the design that's a little more solid. So I may try over here. This is going to wrap around. Let's see how it turns out. What I'm going to do is I am going to mark with pencil. Pencil does not transfer to your blank. My top edge can be straight because mine top here is straight. What I want to do is I'm going to tear the bottom of this so it gives it a rough edge look. So I just want to kind of, where this kind of goes down, I'm going to mark, and then I can just kind of tear the edges there, and then we'll secure it with heat tape and our wrap. So that's where my design kind of goes down. Remember, I said I was going to focus on the top half of this. I can cut my design down. I want to try to get all of this yellow, so I can go ahead and just cut this part down. I'm actually going to keep all of this outer edge here. And then let's cut just some of this bottom off. Keep any of your bottom that you already have ink on. You can reuse that. Remember when I said that there's not really a whole lot of rules, so you can just kind of eyeball this and play around with it. So I'm going to wrap this around, and then I can just kind of gauge this right in here. What I might do is just tear that edge there too. So with my pencil, come in here, and we'll try the full wrap. We'll see what it does. So first I'm going to start tearing it. Just gives it a little bit of a unique look. It's going to not be so linear, which I am very good at making linear designs. I try to vary them, but it doesn't always work. But it kind of will give it a feathered look. It won't be such a solid straight edge when I tear this. Just sort of random. Then I'm saving those pieces. I still have a little bit if I want to come in here, or I can just bring my design down. And then wrap this around. You can choose if you want to try to go around the bottom edge here. I'm going to just come down here on the edge. And then I'm going to wrap this and bring it around. And I'm going to secure that with tape. I could cut this excess off as well. It's going to give me a little bit more of a seal with my, okay, so there's my start. I'll give it a little bit more of a seal with my wrap. But I still gave myself a little bit of room. At least I hope I did. So bottom, yep, the top is just a little bit. Hold that tight. Pull this over and overlap that a little bit. You want to get it as tight as possible. So you can kind of hold that to yourself and pull this in as tight as you possibly can around that cup. And then I'm going to use some of the Artesprix heat tape that I have here on a tape dispenser. I'm going to put it on the top layer, and I'm just going to secure that and kind of pull this tight as I do it. And I'm overlapping. We'll see what that looks like with the colors. Sometimes it'll show through, sometimes it won't. It'll give it a unique look. Since my pattern is very randomized, should be good. And then comes the really fun part. So let's open up, or I think it's fun watching this shrink wrap. There are 5 of these in this packet. So all this is a piece of plastic, and you're going to wrap your wine tumbler, wrap it around, and then you're going to secure it with heat. And it's going to shrivel up, and I'm going to speed this part of the process up, but it can get a bit loud. This is a really cool heat tool because it focuses the heat straight down versus blowing out, which a lot of them do. So I'm gonna speed this up as I shrink wrap it. Grab my heat safe glove and hold this. And then once you have it, you do want to try to get it as flat as possible. You'll see here I have some wrinkles in that paper. The flatter you can get it, the better. But since I have such a randomized pattern look with this kind of watercolor, I don't know, smooshing technique that I did with the plastic wrap, we'll see how it turns out. It's very unique and random. I do have some air in here. I might just try to heat this up just a little bit more. You do not want to burn holes in it. It can melt it too much and it'll start to come apart. But with sublimation, the key is the high heat and the pressure. So this is adding your pressure around. If you did have a mug press or tumbler press, you could probably get this one to press at the top level pretty evenly because it's pretty straight. There is just a little bit of a conical shape to it, but not too much. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to put on my other heat glove, and I'm going to put this in my oven at 350 degrees for 5 minutes. I will speed this video up for the 5 minutes, set a timer so that you don't overcook it. But first, set this down on my surface. I do put in a piece of protective paper so that the plastic wrap is not touching my metal surface. So I am just going to cut this down. This is the Artesprix protective paper. And I can kind of just give that a layer, a protective layer underneath it. So now I'm going to set this into my press or my oven for the 5 minutes. Now once your 5-minute timer goes off, you can use your heat safe gloves and carefully remove that. I've placed my Artesprix protective mat down on my surface. This is a heat safe mat. It is going to be extremely hot. So I'm just going to close up this now and I can turn off my oven. And then I'm going to throw the protective paper away. Any ink that has transferred or blown out from around here, you may or may not see that with the wrap. You don't want to reuse this paper or it could transfer to a future blank. Now, extremely hot. You want to make sure to let this cool down and use your heat safe gloves. I am going to go ahead and unwrap this. The plastic wrap, shrink wrap, is fragile here. It's still pretty hot. You can also carefully use a sharp pointed tool to help get that started and break it apart if needed. But you do not want to scratch the blank. You could scratch that coating and that would take away from it. Sometimes you can just do this with your fingers. Ooh, that looks good. Okay, now it's giving us a little peek. Here's a little peek. This is where the overlap is. So kind of cool. We'll come in and tear this apart. Okay. It's like unwrapping a present. This it would be a great idea for a gals night party. You could make wine cups and then have a glass of wine together. Holiday parties, that kind of thing, where you get together and everybody just creates their own. You do want to use a dedicated oven. You do not want to use the oven that you cook your food in. Make sure you have a dedicated oven for that, or a tumbler press. And then just have some fun and create with it. You could do the same things with the markers or the inks. You could add designs with stamp pads. This just takes a little bit of time. And you want to be patient. You don't want to, I'm not rushing this because I don't want to, one, I don't want to burn myself, but I don't want to scratch the blank. And the heat tape is very well secured, so you just want to make sure to get in and not scratch it. Oh. There we go. It's very strong. I managed to bend my tool. This is a brand new tool to me. It did not hold up very well. But, so pick your tools wisely. It's the tape's really, really good to secure it down. But actually, I think the tool itself is not. So I'm still going at it very patiently. There we go. Now I can get this off. Starting to see some of that color. Oh, almost had it. Ooh. That's pretty neat. So I have my monogram there, but I'll show a little slow spin here. You can see some of my colors got into the orange and the blues. That created the brown. You have a little bit of kind of alcohol ink type here. And then as you go around the edges, the yellow turned out really, really good. The orange, there's a little bit of fading down in here, which I expected when I had that down there because of the curve of the wine glass. And then here's where that overlap is. So you can see that. So sometimes it does show very well. With the overlap, it's going to make a difference. Sometimes it doesn't. That yellow actually showed up really well. The blue less. And then we have this little monogram here. You want to wait for it to cool. I'm going to try to see if I can pick it off with my heat safe gloves since mine is still warm. And because of my design, it's not going to show up very well, but that's okay. I still like the design. If you had a solid background, this monogram, a bit more solid. Okay, let's see this. Yeah, we're cool enough. Not gonna burn myself. You can see how it did its job. It stayed white, and I can see an outline there, but you have to look really closely. So it's a hidden message. You can even put a hidden message in there. So I have this blue mixed in with some purple there, orange, the yellow and the oranges really came out, and you have a unique tumbler. Add your favorite drink to it. Wash this first. Don't scrub it. You could rinse this, wash it out, and have it ready to use. Now, I wanted to share with you, earlier I spoke about having the extra prints. I grabbed my extra prints. I really wanted to show how that monogram could turn out on a solid background since my first one didn't turn out. So I simply grabbed these extra prints. This is all the excess from an extra paintbrush or an extra smooshing. I have these just sitting around. The best part about this is you can set them aside as long as they are protected, they don't get wet, they don't get high heat, then you can use these for a year or longer after you've already done them. So it's a great thing to have the extra. So I just grabbed one with as solid of a background as I could. I mean, there was a few more in there, but I wanted some color to it. Again, you want to keep in mind that angle of your tumbler. I did create another monogram. I thought I needed a little bit more around it, so I created a frame that went around that, and then I'm just adding that with some transfer tape. So if your design is not all one piece that could be put on as a sticker, use transfer tape with this Artesprix heat resist mask, and I'm securing that with my fingernail. I find that with the things like this with the solid surface, the heat resist mask goes on well to that solid surface, and there's less risk of the inks being able to get in underneath it. So I get a really good white background and the ink doesn't come through that heat resist mask. And then I'm just going to, you can see here at the bottom, I have excess. I could cut it off. I decided to tear it to see what would happen. It gave it a unique look, as we'll see here in just a bit. And then again, the shrink wrap process. And this, I love this part of it. I just love that peeling it off is takes the longest, but the shrink process of it, it just, I don't know. I like the results of it. So sharing that with you. And then I'm going to sit this in the oven for the 5 minutes at the temperature, and we will come back and share a look here. This is a look. It gave it a unique look at the bottom of that with that crinkle paper, and then a quick spin around the design to show the entire thing. Now my wrap, it was a letter size sheet of paper, so it didn't quite fit all the way around with my brush strokes. That's okay. I was just using one of those leftover prints that I had. And then the bottom, that is just a really unique look. Now I want to try it again. Once you get started with this, it's hard to stop. But that's why it'd be great for parties. Everybody's would come out different. No matter what you're doing and designing with, your designs are going to all be unique. And then here is a look at the blue dots that I mentioned. If you have any of the debris or dirt, I noticed on the very white part of this, if you did have ink over top of it, it might hide it, but I wanted to share that look at that blue dot that I had mentioned previously in the video. And then a final look at this project. You can see how that heat resist mask really showed well, and it was secured to the blank, and the ink did not show through. So there's a look at those two sublimation tumblers. Make sure to check out the resources in the video description below, as well as all of the supplies used in this video. Check out the Artesprix website for additional inspiration and tutorials. Thanks for watching and have a great day.